Now, at this time, we're getting ready to introduce none other than our keynote speaker for the evening, none other than Dr. Renai Ellison, and she is our very first graduate of the Think Again program. So, not only has she gone through our program, but she's doing some amazing things, and we could not think of anyone better than to celebrate you on tonight. So, let me just take a few moments just to share a little bit about her because we recognize that we do have some guests in the room who don't know who this phenomenal woman is. She is the founder and the CEO of Embrace Life Enterprises. Dr. Renai Ellison began her journey as a life and leadership development coach and consultant after a successful career as a model, an actress, and an international television host. She now serves as a mentor coach with the Institute for Professional Excellence in Coaching, that's known as IPEC, where she received her second coaching certificate in 2015. Renai is also credentialed as an International Coaching Federation, that's the ICF Professional Certified Coach, PCC. Look how amazing this woman is. Renai is an author and experienced trainer, coach, consultant, and speaker. She recently penned her memoir and personal development book, From Fake to Phenomenal: 8 Secrets to Abandon Inauthenticity and Embrace Self-Discovery. I'd like to present to you none other than Dr. Renai Ellison.
And thank you so much, Think Again coaching program, for just laying a foundation for me in 2021, being the first graduate of the program. I am honored, proud, humbled, amazed at God's grace and glory to put me in this position tonight, especially since Reverend Hurley just called me, what was it, 3 hours ago? Because unfortunately the original keynote speaker got ill and wasn't able to make it tonight. So I was able to, be a part of this incredible gathering of wonderful people, women who have really been able to embrace this whole idea of thinking again. I just want to give, first of all, glory and honor to God for being our Father, our incredible creator, our amazing support, and for just being able to launch us all into this space tonight. I just feel so incredibly excited, so incredibly enthusiastic about everything that the Think Again program has to offer and what it did for me, what it's done for the graduates that are on this call tonight, what it did for the Executive Beauty founders, Pamela Elaine Nichols and the Reverend Cheryl A.S. Hurley. I have to honestly say that in 2021, when I stepped into the Think Again program, I write about it in my book, when Cheryl basically asked me if I wanted to be a part of it. Quite as it's kept, I was a little busy. I was writing my dissertation. I was going through my doctoral program. I was going through a divorce. And quite frankly, just did not want to prioritize yet another thing. But because of the love that I have for Reverend Shirley as not only a sister in the faith, but just a dear friend, I said yes. And it was the absolute best decision that I ever made in my adult life. And I will say it because, it was the start really of my journey, my inward journey. I had been in therapy and coaching and like I said, a doctoral program and have more degrees than a thermometer, but I had never really taken that introspective journey that the Think Again program really teaches, and they were able to lay a foundation for me to really shift my mindset. So tonight, I'm hoping not to be before you long, but I do kind of have a lot to say about this program and about my journey and about what I really hope for each and every one of the graduates, for Saida, for Dr. Donna, for Maisha, and for anyone and everyone on this call who is considering Think Again, for anyone and everyone on this call who has been living their life from the outside in. Tonight, I want to kind of tag a title to this message, Love Yourself from the Inside Out. And again, as I mentioned, the Think Again program was a program that really helped me to understand, first and foremost, before I wrote my book, the value of moving toward abandoning inauthenticity and embracing self-discovery. The title of my book is basically From Fake to Phenomenal, and it shares the story of my life. As you know, Cheryl mentioned, I spent a lot of time in front of the camera. And when you're in front of a camera, when you make your living that way, there's a lot of inauthenticity happening. There's a lot of fakeness. There's a lot of disconnecting from self. There's a lot of prioritizing and privileging the idea of pleasing the masses so that you can be successful, so that you can continue to earn that big fat paycheck. But how many of you know that golden handcuffs, platinum handcuffs, right, are not really what God wants for our lives? God does not ever want us to feel like we are in bondage, even when we're making 6+ figures, driving BMWs and Mercedes, living in great neighborhoods, dating up. He doesn't want that for our lives. And even when we think we're doing what we are supposed to be doing, ourselves successful, if we are honest with ourselves, and if I'm honest with myself, there was always a level of discontentment and disconnection that I felt my entire life. So tonight I have about 4 points that I want to bring to you, and I just want to just talk to you a little bit, girlfriend to girlfriend, about what it really means for me to think again. So point number one, and you've heard this tonight. I learned it actually in the Think Again program. Your life will follow the story that you tell yourself. All right. So what does that mean, right? What does that mean when you break it down to a granular level, when you really get to the meat and the bones? How are you talking to yourself? What story are you telling yourself? What are you telling yourself about yourself is the question. So I want to invite each and every woman on this call, every graduate, every friend, family member, to really think about the idea of believing what God says about you. Believing that you are the head and not the tail. Believing that you are above and not beneath. Believing that you are more than a conqueror. You are a child of the Most High God, that you can do all things through Christ who strengthens you, and that God has a plan to prosper you, not to harm you, plans to give you hope in a future. There's a template out there. It's called the Holy Bible. And over the last several years, I've leaned into that book more than I ever have, because in my heart of hearts, I really felt like there was a unique battle going on for my soul. What do I want to prioritize? What do I want to value? What do I want to believe about me? And what I can honestly say is that the start of me shifting my mindset to be able to really embrace what God says about me did not begin at 23 when I accepted Jesus as Lord, because I didn't grow up in church. It didn't begin when I got baptized. It didn't begin when I served on ministry for the first time. It didn't begin when I dated a wealthy man. It didn't begin when I got my first job in TV. It didn't begin there. It began when I had gone through hell and high water, and I had no other choice but to submit to the life that God had designed for me. And it started in that Think Again program. It started with a conversation with a girlfriend who just happened to be a reverend, and just happened to be a minister, and just happened to be a life coach, and just happened to, develop this program. But how many of you know that favor comes on 2 feet? And I would be willing to bet that Saida, Dr. Donna, Maisha, and Sharon Ferguson, who are graduates of this program, can attest that when that favor walks into your life, it is your responsibility. God has uniquely given you an opportunity to open that door and to say yes. So your life will follow the story you tell it, and you have to be able to embrace the people that God places in your path that will give you the guidance, the direction, the support, the love. I was an only child growing up, so I was very happy that in the first 4 months of my experience in the Think Again program, I got Pam and Cheryl all by myself. They could have canceled that program, but they decided to continue it with just one student, me. And that was the most beautiful experience of my life. One of the most. The next thing I will say is the second point is to operate from a spirit of abundance rather than lack. My company, Embrace Life Enterprises, has a foundational principle. It's called CARE. It's an acronym. And it stands for compassion, abundance, which we'll talk about in just a minute, resilience, and enthusiasm. And it comes from the idea that when I was in my doctoral program, I was doing my doctoral dissertation, and I interviewed 10 Black women ministry leaders. And I asked them questions about why they did what they did. I wanted to write a dissertation that would take me through my life, not something that was just connected to a job. I wanted it to be meaningful. So I chose this narrative inquiry of Black women ministry leaders, and I interviewed these women, and I found out that there were 3 things that the women who lead these ministries and the women they serve prioritize. And that's community, connection, and relationship. And what I can honestly say is that A in CARE, that abundance, is something that I invite every woman on this call to really, truly, sincerely, authentically embrace. To acknowledge abundance so that you can quiet competitiveness. I spent a lot of time competing. When you're in television, you audition. When you're in television, you always want to be the best. You always, in life, really, but especially in that industry. And how many of you know that competitiveness is a calling killer? My pastor, Darius Daniels, at Change Church, he says, you can't be your best self by yourself. And you probably heard the expression, teamwork makes the dream work, right? But there's a little bit of an extra added phrase that he adds to that equation, and that's that you don't go as far as your dream, you go as far as your team. And to be able to have that community, connection, relationship is so important. To be able to prioritize that idea of abundance, to be able to really walk in that favor and in that grace of abundance, knowing that there's enough to go around for everybody. She may be prettier, she may be thinner, she may have great hair, she may have flat abs, whatever. But to be as humble as you can be, to be able to embrace that sister, to know that even though she may shine in one area, that does not dim your light. Even when you feel it, even when you feel that urge to compete, to say no to that, and to be able to really walk in that idea of embracing that caring in that relationship. Number 3 is kind of a twofold, point 3. Prioritize, purpose, and clarify your calling. So the first point, your life will follow the story you tell yourself. The second, operate from a spirit of abundance rather than lack. The third point, prioritize, purpose, clarify your calling. And we talked a lot about that whole idea of really doing the work. You know, in the video that Cheryl and Pamela showed, many of the students on that Zoom call, were talking about the idea of how they, really had to dig deep to find the answers for themselves, to really be able to know who they are. And isn't it interesting that here we are, many of us in our 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, some of us still getting to know who we are. That's a gift. That's not a bad thing, because I truly believe what the Bible teaches, which is that the best is yet to come, that our latter days will be better than our former days. So life is not an external experience. It's an introspective journey. And that purpose is really about what God has deposited in you and why you are placed on this earth. Aren't you curious about that? The calling part is the how. So the purpose part is the what and the why. The calling part is the how. So how are you going to manifest? How are you going to walk in what God has truly called you to do? Many of us prioritize this idea of being on our A game. And if you've ever heard me speak, you've probably heard me talk about this idea of the A game. So there's all kinds of things that happen when we are on our A game. We get acknowledged, we get accolades, we get awards, we get achievements, we get advancements, those promotions, we have accomplishments, right? Degree here, bachelor's, master's, doctorate, certification, all these things come to life for us, right? We get adoration, we have acquisition, we get homes and cars and men and all kinds of stuff, right? We're on our A game. But sometimes we forget the most important A, authenticity. To be true to ourselves, to really be able to know and embrace who we are as women, as Black women, as a community of believers. So the fourth and final point, and I'll leave you here, is to commit to valuing radical self-love. I've been learning a lot about values and priorities over the last several years, the importance of really valuing that idea of self-love. And I heard a lot on that video about how many of us, especially as women of color, we have a tendency sometimes to take on the burdens of the world. My soror, Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, Zora Neale Hurston, who is a prolific writer, called Black women the mules of the world. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that phrase, but it's all about the whole idea of Black women really taking on the burden of the world, of humanity, of prioritizing others, of literally privileging other people before ourselves. I'm going to invite you to think about yourself as the number one priority. Now, we know that we honor God. We give him all the glory. He is always first in our lives. But when we think about pouring out to humanity, pouring out to society, think about the idea of really putting yourself first. And what I mean by that is, before you can genuinely help others, there has to be a healing. There has to be an emotional, spiritual, financial, sometimes psychological, spiritual, I said spiritual, healing that happens And there are three things that I believe that we need to do in order to achieve that healing. They're the three things that I went through in my process and continue to go through daily. The first is to excavate your trauma, to be able to really dig deep. You know, we shy away sometimes from that word deep, right? We shy away from getting too deep. But it's the deep, it's in the deep. That's where the healing happens. So whether it's a mentor, a coach, a trainer, whomever, again, favor comes on 2 feet, and God gives us what we need in terms of support and community. And I just want to congratulate, the graduates today for being able to understand that you cannot be your best self by yourself, that you do need help. You do need support. That's a step in the right direction. The second thing is to encourage your soul. Encourage your soul. Put your mask on before you put the mask on someone else, as they say on the airplanes, right? Encourage your soul. Lift yourself up. Find out what you love. Find out what you like. Validate your difference. Validate your unique experience. You know what I discovered about myself? I'm a Black nerd. Always have been, always will be. I tried to be one of the cool kids. I tried to be, to fit in, get in to fit in. I remember being about, I guess I was in maybe my late 20s, and I was on, national TV on QVC as a host, and the job just wasn't fulfilling me. I wanted to be somebody different. I wanted to know what it was like to live in the inner city and struggle, and why was I so privileged, and blah, 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 blah. And so I would spend my weekends, I don't know if any of you know, at Lou and Choose in North Philadelphia, drinking, rum and Coke, and listening to, whatever music. I guess Tupac and Biggie were out back then in the 90s, eating Chinese chicken wings from the corner Chinese store, trying to fit into a culture that I knew nothing about, trying to learn. Like I was like a scientist trying to kind of investigate, to kind of figure all that out. Craziness, right? It was good because I learned, I had great friends, but it just wasn't me. I like to read. I like to write. I like big words every now and then. I love school. And to be able to know that about myself finally, and to admit that and to walk in that, feels really good. So what is it about yourself that you've been stuffing, that you've been abandoning, trying to fit in, trying to mold who you are into what society says that you should be? Encourage your own soul, embrace who you are, and be okay with it. And then the final point for, committing to that radical self-love is embrace your beautiful life. I geek out over life anymore. I am so blessed. I know that I have more life behind me than I have in front of me. I know that the life that I live right now, this is my playground, I call it. When I was growing up, I was bullied in school, and I never liked the playground. Kids were mean, they tortured me. And so now I'm at this place in my life where I think, I want to enjoy life. And my idea of fun is not necessarily jumping out of a plane or, doing anything crazy. And it's not necessarily anything that's traditionally fun. I find fun in the idiosyncrasies of life, the nuances of life, that joy unspeakable that the Bible talks about. So embrace your beautiful life. This experience, this Think Again program is such a remarkable opportunity to be able to shift your mindset and really be able to walk in your unique identity, like Pastor Darius calls it, and I just want to say to Sahida, to Dr. Donna, to Maisha, we are so, 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 so very proud of you for being the women you are. We are so inspired by the women that you will become. And we are also, I am also, can speak for myself, humbled by the heart of each of you to submit to this process. So I just want to say, may each of you continue to take this walk and continue to embrace, continue to unleash your calling and your purpose, to walk uncompromisingly, unapologetically, unwaveringly in your God-given destiny. And to God be the glory forever and ever. Amen. Good night, everybody.
Oh, wow. Can you just give her, come off mute and just
Come
give her
off
an
mute.
applause for such a powerful,
And some emojis
Awesome.
and
Lord.
Oh
Send
my
up the
goodness.
love, the hearts, the reaction.
yes.
It was just wonderful.